welcome to Maverick Mindcast. This is it, guys. This is part 3, the last part of the trilogy with Ed, talking about the financial system, Bitcoin. Hi, Ed. Welcome.
Hey, Corinne. Damn glad to be back as always.
Good to have you. And once again, guys, if you like what you're hearing, please share, send links, subscribe. We definitely want to grow the channel so that this gets out to more people and we can educate more people and hopefully take advantage of this great awakening that we're happening. So definitely, if you don't mind, do that. Changing up the format a little bit for this one, I have a ton of questions. I've already put out there, I'm a Bitcoin skeptic for sure. I know Ed's putting all his eggs in this basket, but you know, I am a skeptic, but I also am pretty ignorant about Bitcoin. I mean, obviously I've learned a lot from our interviews, but I have questions outside of the information you've shared. So I wanted to pose those questions and see, maybe it'll resonate for the audience too. They might have the same questions. So here's the first one. So what's the difference between the value of Bitcoin and buying Bitcoin? Does that make sense? And let me know if that question is not clear to you.
So, I mean, it makes sense, but so if you're trying to talk about like a price tied to like a currency, do you mean like?
Well, you know, people say, oh, you know, Bitcoin it's 50,000 now for one Bitcoin. But then when I talk to people, they'll say, oh, anyone can buy Bitcoin. You don't have to have $50,000 to buy Bitcoin. That confuses me.
I understand.
Like,
I understand.
well, how do you, like, what's the difference then? Because it's like, to me, it's like a ticker, you know, oh, Bitcoin right now is worth 20K or whatever. So I'm thinking, well, I'm priced out of that. I'm not doing that.
So before we get into that, and I'm going to definitely address all your questions, I think the audience needs this quick preface on what's at stake here. I mean, I don't know, because there's a chance maybe you didn't watch the first 2 conversations, but you have to to really understand the need for Bitcoin. You have to understand what's at stake. And I don't think maybe your listeners do, but if, you know, people who might know me watching this, they may not understand what's really at stake. And that is that the forces that control the global monetary system are really trying to bring in a new, completely, you know, central bank digital currency, which is completely, forget any privacy you thought you ever had with paper notes or cash. That goes out the window once this system comes in. And it's not a matter of if they are 100% trying to bring this in, and they're doing everything in their power via the controlling of governments, especially the government of the United States, which is working very hard to destroy our, you know, the dollar. So once a central bank digital currency comes into place, that means now you have the central bank of the United States, which would be the Federal Reserve, control every single aspect of banking. Because right now we still have private banks in the United States. But once you get a central bank digital currency in, they want to eradicate the small banks. The few big ones will survive, you know, for managerial reasons. But in reality, all control, I mean, the Fed controls everything now, but once you get paper physical notes out of circulation, they're going to control everything. And the system they want to bring in is a social credit score system. China was a test run. You know, China controls every aspect of their citizens' life. You bring in a social credit score, that leads to carbon score. You're driving your car too much, we're going to shut your money off. You are posting things that go against the regime on social media, your money gets shut off. You know, we decide you owe X amount of tax because we made up some BS reason. We're just going to deduct that from you without you having any say. Everything now is fully controlled by them. Whereas right now, we still have the capability to transact in physical notes. Once this system comes in, and again, like as much as I would love to fight to keep paper notes in circulation, we don't control that. They control paper notes, which represent only 2% of global currency anyway. This entire system is based off numbers on a screen. We went through that in our prior conversations.
Yeah, and I'll post the links to those so people could check it out.
Yeah, it's like once you understand, like when I say, or when other people in the, you know, macroeconomic environment say that a financial collapse is coming. In reality, there's nothing to collapse. It's balance sheets and computer screens, numbers on computer screens that collapse. You know, you think your 401k is real, it's numbers on a screen. None of this stuff exists tangibly.
Mhm.
Everything
And
is
neither does Bitcoin.
exactly. That's my point. And we're going to get to why that matters, because once they collapse the financial system, they're just replacing it with another more tyrannical fascist system to control people. Like they control it now, but this is 100 times worse.
Yeah.
At least you can,
Mhm.
at least you can transact privately with physical paper notes, and they're doing everything they can to weed that out. Many people have been talking about this for decades. You know, David Icke especially talking about for a very long time. This is their goal, because once they get out paper notes, which we can't control if they do, that brings in their system. So now we have two possible systems. We have the system they want to bring in, central bank digital currencies, and we have the Bitcoin monetary network, which no one controls, which they cannot control, and we can get into why. So your first question is, what gives, I guess, what you want to get right in,
difference
you want
between
to
the
get right into
value of
play.
Bitcoin and buying Bitcoin? Because
So-
when I hear Bitcoin, but just this is all totally hypothetical. Like Bitcoin right now is $50,000, whatever, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
I'm
so,
like, well, I'm not buying Bitcoin because I don't have that kind of money. But then
Yeah.
you
Oh,
hear
great
people
question.
say, oh, well, anyone can buy you could still buy Bitcoin. So that's where I don't understand the difference.
Okay. So for starters, real quick, and I don't even remember, I don't think, I think I went through it in the last interview, but what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a digital global monetary network in which one person can send value to another person without an intermediary.
Mhm.
It's a permissionless, trustless system. You don't need permission from a bank, a government to send value. You don't need a bank in the middle to verify. You know, it solves double entry counting, which is what banks do. They, you know, if Ed wants to send money to Corinne, Ed has Bank of America, Corinne has XYZ Bank. Our banks have to be in the middle for me to send you money to make sure I have the money. The Bitcoin network does this all on its own through software, through its protocol, right? So it's a global digital monetary network that is controlled by nobody and everyone in the network.
Mhm.
Okay. So you have two components of Bitcoin. You have nodes and miners. And I'm just going to do this.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to revisit. I mean, people can watch those episodes. I don't want to
No,
get
but
too
I didn't,
into the
yeah,
weeds
no, we're
again.
not
I
going
want
to
to
get,
just
it's
get
just,
more
it's just
high
quick.
level for this.
Nodes are computers that run the Bitcoin software, thousands of them scattered over the planet that verify the transactions.
Mhm.
Ed sends Bitcoin to Corinne. Ed has the Bitcoin in his wallet. It checks out. This is all done algorithmically through the protocol. No humans are running the computers, but the software and protocol itself is what verifies this.
Mhm.
Miners are capitalists. Miners are the physical, I guess, tethered to reality, tangibility that Bitcoin has, because miners bring supply to the market, right? Miners,
Like a miner of gold or something.
yeah, miners create Bitcoin out of existence, but the difference is miners have to expend an insane amount of energy, which is good because the more energy, the more secure the network is. So miners are rewarded for the supply that they bring to the market. They get paid from the protocol known as a block reward in Bitcoin. So they need to have, so you have their capital expenditure, whereas they have to buy all the specialized computers to run the Bitcoin mining software, which are
Okay.
basically computers. All they do is run an insane amount of calculations every second, known as hashes. They're just guesses. And each one of these miners is competing to add the next block of transactions to a ledger, because all Bitcoin is a ledger of transactions. It's that simple. Like, we make it complicated. It's a digital ledger of transactions of people sending value to different people. All right, that's all it is.
Mhm.
So miners,
And there's
Min-
no, oh gosh, I just had the question. There's no, does it also, it's a ledger, but does it also capture what's being purchased or what? Or is it just the
no,
transaction?
it's sending bits over cyberspace. Like doesn't know, it doesn't know what you're buying. Like
Okay,
you're
yeah,
sending,
that's what I mean.
you're sending Bitcoin, but no, it doesn't know, like,
Okay, good.
it doesn't
It's
know what you're
anonymous,
using
like
your
whatever's
Bitcoin.
fine. Okay.
Yeah, it's too anonymous. So like if Ed sends Bitcoin to Corinne, it comes up as an address of an alphanumeric address of numbers and letters. Like it doesn't say my name, or it doesn't,
And it doesn't
you
say
know,
why you're sending it to me.
yeah. So like the only way they can track that is if they get, you know, people to analyze the blockchain and then try to tie a certain address somewhere where they would have bought Bitcoin, which was tied to a bank account, known as know your customer and money laundering laws. But we'll get, that's like different. Just let's get the basic. Miners bring Bitcoin supply to the market. That's where all new Bitcoin is created. The miners need, so they got to buy machines, and they got to, that's their capital expenditures, source a facility, and buy specialized computers to run the software to bring new Bitcoin into existence.
Mhm.
Their OPEX, or their operation expenditures, is sourcing the cheapest electricity possible, because they need to run these computers, like for them to mine the next block of transactions, they need the best chance at I guess winning the block. So the way it works is miners are all competing all over the world. They're competing with each other. It's true capital markets. They're competing with each other to add the next 1 megabyte block of transactions onto the ledger. It's a ledger that never ends. That's what a blockchain is. 1 megabyte block of transactions added to a ledger, and then the miners, the protocol is trying to every 10 minutes add another block. That's the way the system works. It's meant to add a new block of transactions every 10 minutes to the ledger, and it just never ends. Every 2 weeks or every 2016 blocks, the protocol itself will look at the average amount of time it took to add a block of transactions to the ledger. And if it's
Okay.
over 10 minutes, there's something called the difficulty adjustment, which will go down, which makes it easier. It means you need less power to mine a block. If it's less than 10 minutes, then the difficulty adjustment will go up, which means now the miners have to get even more electricity, spend more money to run these computers. So it's true capitalism. That's free markets. You know, they're going out, they're sourcing electricity from the cheapest places on earth. It incentivizes stranded energy from, you know, like geothermal energy that could be stranded in a volcano or a waterfall. It's capitalism. They're out there finding the cheapest energy to run the miners, to bring Bitcoin to the market. And this is where we get the price, right? Why would they do this? Because the network has a value. Bitcoin is based solely on supply and demand. It's the only true free market on planet Earth right now, because there's no central banks to come in when it crashes. There's no, you know, there's no bailouts. There's no safety net. It's purely based on what the market is willing to pay for it. So now, why is understanding mining important? Because right now, the protocol from the first block ever mined, which was Satoshi, like 12 years ago, or 2009 Genesis block, January 3rd, it was worth nothing. So it started with one person or one group of people, then more people came to the network, and eventually it became, you know, got to the point where it was worth a penny. Someone was willing to pay a penny somewhere for some Bitcoins, and then it grows and grows. The miners are rewarded. So when you're running all these computers, whoever expends the majority of the energy gets more of a chance to win the right to add the block to the blockchain. So when you win that right as a miner, you're rewarded with Bitcoin. So it started with 50 Bitcoin in the very beginning. Every 4 years, that supply to market gets cut in half. It's known as the halving. So from 50 to 25 every 4 years later, then from, you know, half of 25, which was 12 and a half, then to now we're at right now, May of 2020 was the last halving, which is now the supply of Bitcoin to market is 6.25 Bitcoin. So if you're running a mining operation, you bought specialized computers, you are paying an electric company for their, you know, you source cheap electricity to run your computers, you get rewarded with 6.25 Bitcoin right now. So those Bitcoin need to have value. You bought computers, your capex, you invested money to bring Bitcoin to the market. So from Bitcoin being under a penny, with no theoretical value, up to now, there's been a free market in there made up of miners, traders, and what's known in the space as hodlers. Hodlers are, it's from a forum where someone made a mistake, and instead of writing Bitcoin holders, they wrote hodlers because I guess they were drunk or something. And then someone created the acronym HODL, hold on for dear life. Those are the Bitcoin, those are people like me. I am a hodler. I've done the work. I put in the hundreds of thousands of hours at this point to understand what this is, the potential for it. I am buying Bitcoin at any price because I don't care about the dollar value. I care about the Bitcoin value. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin to me. Whatever the dollar price is, it doesn't matter to me anymore because I see the future. My future is a non-fiat system. That's the future I'm trying to bring in. So you get, when the real price value of Bitcoin comes when these miners have to be profitable. So if they're getting 6 Bitcoin, and let's say the price of one Bitcoin is $20,000, they're operating.
What does that mean? The price of one Bitcoin, like
what the market,
all those expenses?
What? No. So
yield one Bitcoin, or
if the market is so the market is exchanges, traders on Wall Street, hedge funds, institutionals. The price is set by market makers, whether it's it's not a human. On an exchange, it's typically, an automated market maker, and it's just getting orders. I'm willing to pay $10 for Bitcoin. Well, I'm willing to pay $11. I'm willing to pay $12. I'm willing to pay $9 for one. And then it's a wall of money. You see one, if you're looking at a screen, if you see a buy, sell wall, like people on Wall Street, you'll see a green mountain, red mountain, and it just goes up and down of people bidding up the price or selling it down. It's free markets, whether it's mining companies selling Bitcoin, traders on Wall Street, retail people on their cell phones buying it, all of that factors in to the dollar price. But remember, Bitcoin's a global currency, so we can't think of it. It's a dollarized world, but in reality, Bitcoin's priced against every currency on the planet. But it comes down to market participants taking their fiat currency, whether it's a dollar, a British pound, peso, Japanese yen, whatever it is, willing to pay a sum of money for that. Now we're 12 years in. So 12 years into this thing, the market, people, individuals, hedge funds, whatever it is, miners selling or buying, are willing to pay a certain price, which happens to be right now $20,000. At one point, it got up to almost $70,000 because there was a lot of euphoria. We talked about in the first episode, central banks control everything. So they're flooding the system with credit. 2020 printed trillions of dollars. We're not going to get into the macro aspect of whether that money gets into the real economy or not. They destroyed supply chains. Inflation went rampant. All this stuff goes into asset prices. So what drives the price of Bitcoin is pure supply and demand. Miners that mine, let's say they mine, they win a block, they get 6 Bitcoin in a quarter. So those 6 Bitcoin at, let's say one Bitcoin is $20,000, their cost to mine that Bitcoin needs to be, let's say 10,000. So that's a 50% margin. That's mining. That's capitalism. That's battling it out with other miners around the world. Find the cheapest electricity, the most efficient computers, the most efficient facilities. Wherever you can find the cheapest energy, the lower you can generate Bitcoin, the more profit you get. So we get to the points where now these miners, to pay all of their CapEx, OpEx, they need to sell Bitcoin into the market. And once they sell, once they sell, they're selling it to exchanges, over the counter, institutions, whatever it is, those people are buying. So when miners sell their Bitcoin to pay expenses, all that hits the market, that drives the price down. It's the same as equities. It's the same as any other market. More supply to the market drives price down. But here's the big difference with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is basically a digital synthetic commodity. because it requires work to create, the same way gold is a commodity or lumber, whatever. It takes work to generate those things. To mine gold, cut down trees, takes work. To mine Bitcoin, you need specialized computers, cheap electricity. Now, for example, no matter how many people come to the Bitcoin mining market, let's say they say, oh, this Bitcoin thing, we can make a lot of money over there. Let's go mine Bitcoin. You could have all the capital in the world just flooding into Bitcoin. No more Bitcoin can come to you can't create more than the supply schedule. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like if you have gold.
I think we're getting off track though with this question. I just can you explain what the difference is though?
Difference of what?
My original question, like the value of Bitcoin, meaning 20K. I
20,000.
could still buy Bitcoin. Like I don't want to pay 20K for Bitcoin.
Oh, okay.
Can
Yeah.
I still
Sorry.
buy Bitcoin?
That's such a big point. I'm glad you brought it up. I never even said that. You can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. You can buy $1 worth of Bitcoin. You can buy.
And then what would that equal? I'm just asking because I don't know. Like, okay, if I
So-
I have $50.
Okay, so one Bitcoin is denominated in 100 million satoshis. That's just the denomination of one Bitcoin.
Well, what could I buy with if I have $50, could I buy enough Bitcoin to buy something worth $50 that they took Bitcoin, where they took Bitcoin?
So the thing is, when you're buying Bitcoin, you understand, if you understand it well, the last thing you want to do is spend it right now because it's real money. You want to spend dollars because dollars depreciate. Bitcoin gets more valuable as time goes on. So if you're trading, I'll give you my example. I save in Bitcoin. I do not save US dollars at all. Okay. I have, some reserves in case I'm not working to live off of and to pay monthly expenses, but I do not save a single penny for the long term because I've done the work. I understand. I have a deep understanding of it. I don't save dollars. I save in Bitcoin every month. So like what someone would say, put in a savings account, I put into Bitcoin. So, but if you want to buy Bitcoin to spend it, you can. I mean, you can trade $50 worth of dollars, buy $50 worth of Bitcoin, which would be, it would be a number of Satoshi, a set amount of Satoshis. And then you go out in the market and, wherever they accept Bitcoin, you could buy theoretically.
Okay, so it is an even exchange. That's what I wanted to know.
Yes.
But
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. So I'm so sorry I didn't bring that up because that's the most important thing that people don't understand. If Bitcoin, you see on CNBC or whatever financial media, oh, Bitcoin hit $50,000.
That's what I mean. You're like, I'm not doing Bitcoin.
Exactly. People think they have to pay $50,000. No.
Exactly.
You can buy $1 worth, $10, and again, this is what makes this the apex predator of finance. You can't buy a fraction of a stock. You want to buy Amazon stock, you're at the height, I think it was like 3,000.
Well, they split their stocks though, don't they?
Yeah, but that's different. Like stock splits have, it dilutes shareholders, but at the same time, it really doesn't it doesn't matter in terms of price. If you're the average person with $100, you're not buying a share of Amazon stock at 3,000.
Exactly. That's my point. Like I never understood when they're like, oh, Bitcoin's at 20K. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing Bitcoin. But then it's like, oh, anybody can use Bitcoin. Like for instance, I'm a big fan of Catherine Austin Fitts, and she actually has on her Solari report, you can pay with a check. You could subscribe to the Solari report. You can pay with a credit card or, online, or if you want, you can pay with a check, or if you pay with a check or if you pay with Bitcoin, you get a discount. So that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, I need $250 to pay for my Solari report subscription, but I want to pay in Bitcoin because I want to get the discounted price.
Yeah, you can do
so
that.
I could do that. I could buy. I don't turn around and say, oh, but Bitcoin's worth $20,000 right now, so I can't do that. Okay.
So I'm really glad you see. These are things that I just know and I forget that.
That's always been my weird. Like I never understood that because most people, when they talk about Bitcoin, they talk about the market price, and to me,
I think that should be one hurdle that comes down for you. Now that you can buy any amount in dollars terms worth of Bitcoin. We have El Salvador is a Bitcoin nation. You
Okay.
have people, El Salvador, parts of El Salvador have more advanced financial infrastructure than the United States.
Mm,
Believe that. And that's a fact because they're using Bitcoin. You have like little stands on the corner selling, ice cream or something. They're using cell phones. They're using Bitcoin. Whereas, here in the United States is someplace, it's still so outdated, right?
yeah.
With many things. So it's like, I'm glad that's one thing you brought up. Yes, you can
Okay.
buy any amount of I can send you a penny right now. A penny's worth of Bitcoin from me
Okay,
to
yeah, that's what I want
yeah.
to know. And is it an even exchange, which it sounds like it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
my
and
next,
so and we know now that the price is it's free market based with humans and it's what people are willing to pay for it. And again, that can be again, it's a free market. So you can, I don't know if you have another question, but
yeah, I do.
there is manipulation because the price can be driven up, it can be
Yeah,
driven down. So
like
the
everything.
traders who trade Bitcoin, they're fiat minded, which means they're recency biased, Wall Street minded. The last 50 years of this, of how things have been. That's their goal is creating more dollars, like getting more money on their balance sheet for their brokerage or whatever, or their firm or their fund. They don't care about what Bitcoin is going to do for the world. Some are
Yeah.
starting to understand it, and those are the ones leaving Wall Street and TradFi, traditional finance, to dedicate their lives to Bitcoin. Many of them, some of the best and brightest minds in financial markets, have left traditional finance to dedicate their life to Bitcoin.
Okay.
Traders, they're simply trading, they're watching charts and looking at things, and they're simply buying Bitcoin at, let's say, X amount, let's say for simplicity, $100 worth of Bitcoin, watch the price go to $200, and then they're selling it to net a profit for their fund. That's trading. It's net neutral. It doesn't really, it can manipulate price up and down. If a lot of people are buying, the price goes up. If a lot of people are selling, it goes down. Where it gets tricky, and this is where the cult comes in, because this is one way they do attack Bitcoin, is all the creatures in the SEC and government. Of course, they only approve regulation that hurts Bitcoin. So cash settled futures markets, which we're not going to get into how that works, but it's a way that they manipulate the dollar price. So we have to detach from dollar price of Bitcoin. And again, that takes work. But the average person sees the price going up and down. There's manipulation that can be done through cash settled futures markets, and it's what they did to gold. That's why gold in reality should be $10,000 to $80,000 an ounce if people understood the true value of it and what it has been for 5,000 years. But what was the problem with gold? They created paper gold ETFs, gold futures, cash settled futures contracts. I was a gold bug. I found Bitcoin because I was a gold bug. I still listen to Peter Schiff, but I listened to all these guys. I understood money was like fiat money was flawed. I found Bitcoin because I understood gold. But what did the creatures in finance do to gold? They created all these paper derivatives, which means, let's say you have 1 ounce of gold, 1 ounce, they're selling or creating contracts to a bunch of people. Let's say 1 ounce of gold to 10 people. Now 10 people have claim on 1 ounce of gold, and it just feeds on itself. And essentially, you now have a market where if the price of gold really starts taking off because of its intrinsic fundamental value of hard money, these people they have access to fake money, printed money, and they can go in the markets, sell these contracts into the market, and boom, price comes down. That's why all the gold bugs have been wrong. Not fundamentally, gold should be $10,000 an ounce, $80,000 an ounce. It should be, but it's not, because they control these markets. Now, what's the difference with Bitcoin? Bitcoin is an open ledger. You can see you can see the blockchain. You can analyze the blockchain. Gold is physical. I don't know how much gold the LBMA, London Bullion, whatever stands for market. So I forget what it's. You don't know how much gold they have, but they're selling a shit ton to all these different people. How do we know? It's the same concept as our first interview with creating dollars for the gold that backs the dollars. That's the fundamental problem with gold. People think tangibility is what gives gold its value. Yeah, in a sense, but when you're talking about this global monetary system, the fact that gold is physical, heavy, hard to move, it's not easily portable, that gives Wall Street and all these, you know, organizations free reign to create all these paper contracts on top of a gold that no one knows how much is in your vault or who owns it. But with Bitcoin, you can demand, and again, with these futures contracts, you got to take delivery of it. I mean, that's how it works. If you're betting on the price of an asset goes in your favor, let's say you have to take delivery. No one wants to take delivery of 100 pallets of gold, and you're going to put it in your garage. Just in theory, like that's how these markets used to work. Like when you made bets on these contracts, you would have to take delivery of oil. It actually happened in 2020 when oil futures went negative. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
All these oil tankers, in theory, like people had to like take delivery of like hundreds of barrels of oil. It doesn't, so it's not realistic, which means now they need to sell it at losses, massive losses. It's the same with gold. So gold is manipulated because no one wants to take delivery of real gold. It just sits in a vault, and then they can create all these financial derivatives on top of it. Bitcoin is digital. It's not real. I can take delivery of $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, $200 billion of Bitcoin. It makes no difference if it's $1 or $1 billion. I can take delivery because it's not real. And you can, anyone can look at the blockchain and see, oh, you have it. So they're going to try to, believe me, they're going to try to do the same thing to Bitcoin that they did with gold. It's going to slap them in the face. They have no idea like that what this animal is. They're going to try to do the same. And think when people find out paper Bitcoin, everyone's trying to get real Bitcoin, the price can skyrocket, because the way these markets work is when you have to take delivery, you have to now go into the market and buy real Bitcoins to deliver. So that's what they can never do with gold. It just kind of was like a handshake, like, all right, yeah, I have the gold, but I don't really have to deliver it to you. We just settle in fiat cash. That's cash settled futures. But now you could have Bitcoin settled futures. If you're betting on the price of Bitcoin up, went against you, you got to buy up not physical, but real Bitcoin, not paper Bitcoin. I don't know, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now that brings me to the perceived value versus the inherent value, because I don't see the perceived.
That's
I think it's all perceived, just like the dollar.
Yeah, exactly. And don't get me wrong, it is, but there's a reason for that.
Whereas with gold, there's more intrinsic inherent value.
So we went through miners, we went through traders. Now we're at hodlers. The people like me who understand it, right? We are the buyers of last resort. We buy Bitcoin at if price of Bitcoin goes to $10,000, I'm buying it. If it goes to 100, assuming nothing fund, and this is where we get into that inherent value. We talked about in the first interview, value does not need physical or tangible inherent value. Money, and again, the goal, a lot of people, Peter Schiffs of the world, they all fight that money needs to be intrinsic. They created an entire fiat-based global financial system based on nothing. And that's what it is right now.
Well, they know that, so that's why they want the gold
standard
back.
Yeah, but that's my point. So we need to separate the fact that Bitcoin needs to have a tangible in your hand. Like Peter Schiff's biggest arguments, well, I can make a watch out of gold, or I can put gold in chip. What does that have to do with money? It doesn't matter. Money is subjective. If I believe something has value for certain properties, then it's money. That's the financial system. People believe the dollar has value because the government says so. That's fiat. What gives Bitcoin value? That it's outside the system, that it is the most secure computer network on planet Earth. No government can physically stop it. And that was another thing we could have got into. The amount of computing power to stop Bitcoin, it's astronomical. It's impossible.
What if they just shut down everything?
I mean, again, when we always say, if they just shut the internet down,
I mean, everything would perish, but I'm sure
we have bigger problems. If the internet goes down, the last thing on my mind is Bitcoin. That's straight. If the internet, if the cyber, that's the last thing on my mind. But to counter that, there are people who know how Bitcoin can be sent off the internet with things called mesh networks, which are basically a network of outside the system routers. that the government can't control. Someone just sent some Bitcoin over a ham radio, like a picture of those big clunky radios. It's and again, I'm not qualified to talk on the technicals of this, but it's done. There are people in Africa using flip phones to send Bitcoin. Like you can, because it's
Yeah, but to buy Bitcoin, you need to be in the system to buy Bitcoin, do you not?
we'll get into that too, because that I had that on my list. But like
Well, we might as well get into it
let's just
now.
get the, so your
I don't
question
wanna
was if they shut
make this
everything
too
down.
long.
If they shut it, if they shut everything down, you would need, again, the thousands and thousands of Bitcoin nodes running the blockchain, running the software. You would have to essentially shut off internet to the entire planet, and every single one of these nodes would need to go down. And even
Okay.
then, there's Bitcoin companies who have satellites in space outside of Earth, outside with their own frequency, running a Bitcoin blockchain. So like that one, that doesn't really like bother. Like they can shut. I
Okay.
mean, what are the odds they shut the internet? I mean, these psychopaths. Believe me, I am open to anything. These people will do anything. But Bitcoin can be sent off internet. It's very possible.
Yeah, okay,
So,
but so then the next question is, okay, we get it. I mean, everything would be down if
Yeah,
that
bigger
happens. So
problem.
that kind of, is just the
We're not
needle in the
thinking-
haystack.
Yeah.
But to acquire Bitcoin, you
Okay.
kind of do have to work within the conventional
Yeah.
system to make the exchange.
Yes. So, and that's great because that's actually one of the questions that was on here. Where do you buy it? Okay. So
Not where do you buy it, just saying how you
Yes.
can't really circumvent traditional
yes, you're right. You're right.
systems
Right now,
to
it's
get
very,
Bitcoin.
I will say right now, it is very
Yeah.
difficult to buy Bitcoin KYC free, which is KYC means know your customer, which is all these exchanges like, Coinbase, Swan Bitcoin, they're companies. So they're beholden to government regulations. So if people buy Bitcoin, yes, you have to show a photo ID, your social, the whole shebang. Yes, that's true. Right now, it's very difficult to buy Bitcoin anonymously. But while we still live in a country of laws, America's the last bastion. We're fighting to, not let them completely take this thing over. We're still a country of laws, right? So right now, the average person, assuming, you can buy Bitcoin and it's okay if the government knows about it. But there are ways, not to answer the other question, there are ways to get completely anonymous Bitcoin, but we're still in the early stages of this technology where the only people doing that are very tech savvy. But again, it's the same concept, go back to the early internet days. The average person wasn't sending, an email or something back in the 70s when email came out. It was only the inside tech. So right now, the Bitcoin tech savvy, and even I'm learning how to, you can do it. It's not, I won't say it's difficult. It's a learning curve, but it's beyond the scope of what the average person is going to do. So that's okay. You don't need to buy yes, I'm an ultimate and anarcho-capitalist. I want anonymous Bitcoin. I know I have to learn how to do it and I will go get it. But the easiest way right now is, buy it on an exchange and let the government know you have it. But it's the same if you're an investor, assuming, and you're buying real estate or you're buying, equities or whatever it is, they know about it. So if you're, again, Bitcoin's for everyone. It's for the third world, middle class, rich. If you're a middle class person trying to preserve your purchasing power and you want to buy Bitcoin, you're buying it. You're not buying it to hide from the government. You're buying it, I guess, as an investment or savings. So it's okay if they know about it because it's not illegal to hold Bitcoin. Right now, Bitcoin.
Yeah, but I'm saying they have control over the conventional
they can.
outlets. If some reason they make it very difficult to purchase Bitcoin,
it's a battle, right?
Procurement
that's
is a blocker.
Because it's going to get to the point where Bitcoin is going to start really it started as magic internet money for nerds. Then it gets to the point where, all right, this thing's gaining some traction
now.
It
isn't magic though. I mean, at the end of the day, is it much different than buying a euro? I mean, going to an exchange and buying a euro with dollars?
It's an expression. What I'm saying is when this thing starts to really threaten the system, and it is going to happen, as Bitcoin's dollar price goes up and more adoption happens, it's really going to start threatening the cult's financial system. When that happens, believe me, and it's like things that I know are coming. Yeah, they're going to come down and clamp down on the exchanges. But at the same time, and these are the Bitcoiners I was telling you off camera, these people are resilient, brilliant, and people working to out innovate the government. So right now, around the clock, you have the best and brightest minds on this planet that understand the scam of the financial system. They're working to create, software through, and they're creating avenues against it. It's like cat and mouse. Okay, government shuts down exchanges. Boom, a decentralized exchange pops up that's ran by an algorithm where anyone could go on and buy Bitcoin. I mean, it doesn't exist yet, but it's coming. So it's cat and mouse. So you're right. The state will actually, when it starts to get that, like when Bitcoin hits 500,000 to $1 million and it really starts to get on their radar, because it's coming, they're that desperation. That's when they start, breaking. That's when governments get tyrannical, and it's coming. Like, I'm fully cognizant that those battles are coming, but we take them step by step. And
I
right
mean,
now,
you
it's
have the Canadians who got hit hard donating to the
so
truckers.
what did we learn from that? We learned
Bitcoin.
that the government couldn't stop the Bitcoin they shut down GoFundMe, but they couldn't stop us from sending Bitcoin. Where the learning, because it's battles, right? The learning experience from that was, now you can't be putting your face out there saying, I'm collecting money for the state, but technology's coming where if you're a trucker now and you learn this stuff, there's going to be ways for you to receive money without the state knowing who you are. And when you have so many people doing it, it's different when you have a small group. But this thing's growing exponentially. More and more people are joining this network every day, more and more and more. It gets to the point where a small little rebel crowd, tough to control. But when this thing starts getting big enough, that's where the state's like, at what point, we can't stop it just gets out of control, right? It gets beyond their reach, because it's not like when they're looking, like, let's say I have Bitcoin, they're not looking at Ed Giron's Bitcoin. They're looking at insane amount of numbers and letters and data trying to tie me to a Bitcoin. Obviously, they dig deep enough, they're going to find it. But now, how do you do that with millions of people, billions of people? You're out. The state is always outnumbered, and that's the biggest thing that they fear we ever find out. How are you going to put let's say, a blockchain task force to surveil billions of people using a permissionless, trustless network? You can't. It's impossible. They're going to try things. They're going to fail. The battle here, and I don't like to say battle because, I don't know if you know who Buckminster Fuller is, but one of the, his best quotes is, you don't change things by fighting the existing reality. You build something that makes the existing reality obsolete. You out innovate them. Mm-hmm. And that's what's happening. So if you can analyze Bitcoin's blockchain, you can see how many new wallets or individuals are coming to the system. This thing's growing at twice the speed of the internet, which was the fastest adoption of any technology in human history. It follows something called S-curve analysis. The first 10 years of a new technology, 10% of people adopt it. Those are early adopters, people like me, and I know you're going to get this and you're going to adopt it. You're going to buy it. The first 10 years, 10%. But from 10% to 90%, it takes another 10 years. So right now we're at—
How many years has it been with Bitcoin?
So S-curve analysis, first 10 years is 10%.
How many years has Bitcoin been out?
Well, we're on year 12.
Okay.
This is now the part when you can track any technology. You can track washing machines. Like, it's analytical. Like, they track all sorts of new technology and how long it took from like early adopters all the way to like everyone has one. Same with computers, internet. Internet was the fastest in human history. First 10 years, so we're at year 12 of Bitcoin's existence, basically. First 10 years, only 10% of the whole planet. That's where we are right now. We're at like 10, maybe 15%.
Okay.
The next 10 years, because it's following S-curve analysis perfect, the next 10 years is where we go from 10% of laser-eyed psychopaths like myself to 90%. That means we're like everyone on planet Earth. Me and you, we come from, in America, we've had it pretty good because we have the world reserve currency. We already went through that. But you got to remember, there's billions of people on planet Earth that have they're unbanked. They don't have a bank account. And they are the ones who are using Bitcoin. So we think of Bitcoin.
How are they getting Bitcoin if they don't have a
because
bank
there
account?
are exchanges in other countries. Like you don't only buy Bitcoin's a global network. You can
No,
buy
I
it.
understand, but how are they procuring it?
Exchanges in other. Remember, in other
What do you
countries,
mean, you go there with paper money?
no, online exchanges. Like you download an app on your phone
Mhm.
and you buy Bitcoin. That's an
But
exchange.
how do you buy it if you don't have a bank account?
I mean, no, that's an example. There's physical ATMs, or a lot of it works through remittance. So, for example, like a lot of people will have family members in the U.S. Like if you send money abroad through Western Union, you're sending dollars. Now
Mhm.
people are starting to send Bitcoin to family. Like let's say in El Salvador, for example, Bitcoin's legal tender. So now those people can go and transact in Bitcoin anywhere. They can get it from ATMs or they can exchange in it. In
But
other
how are
countries,
they, you just said a bunch of people without bank accounts are now getting in on Bitcoin. How are they purchasing it? Because you have to
well, they
exchange
no, no.
something. So
So
how are they
in
exchanging?
these countries there are physical Bitcoin ATMs where you actually can take notes and buy you like would
They're
hold
paying
your
for it with cash.
yes.
Okay.
That exists in other countries, but I'm just saying for the unbanked part, yes, there are billions of people without bank accounts, but these people can get a cell phone. They can still access, debit cards and buy, like there are ways to buy it. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't need, I mean, here in the US, you link your bank account to an exchange and buy it. But
Mhm.
there are different ways to buy it in other countries.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but and I'm not and let me backtrack. The billions of people without a bank account, they're not on Bitcoin yet. Those what I'm saying is those are the ones that are coming to Bitcoin. They're going to skip bank accounts because again, when I say that there's brilliant Bitcoiners around the world working toward finding ways for people to access it without an intermediary or some human needing to be there to facilitate, that's coming. Decentralized exchanges, it's all coming. Where yeah, if you have a cell phone, you're going to be able to get Bitcoin. That's what I'm saying. It's not here yet. We're early stages, but there's trials and
Okay.
test runs of things. So it's happening. It is
Okay.
happening, and more people are adopting it. Twice the speed of internet adoption. So this thing, it's moving super fast. And
Okay.
the Canada thing, just to quickly, that was the best thing that could have happened to Bitcoin because it now shows what governments are capable of. It shows that fascist governments like Trudeau's will change the laws overnight, change the rules overnight, and make you a criminal terrorist. That opens, yeah, like people like they don't understand, like they shoot themselves in the foot when they do this because they think they're like scaring people. No, they're opening. A lot of people had a whole shit moment when they saw what they did to these truckers.
Yeah, but they
And
are
that
intercepting those transactions
no,
though.
they're not they're going to the people's house with guns and they're not there. And that's another misconception because you always see in the headline FBI seizes Bitcoin. No, they didn't seize shit. They went to your house at the point of a gun and took it from you. Yes, that is a problem right now. If they know you have it, if you're out on social media saying I'm standing up for freedom and in Canada and I'm taking this Bitcoin, oh yeah, I am not saying in any way that they cannot show up to your house with a SWAT team and put a gun to your head and say, give us the Bitcoin. But they cannot mess with the Bitcoin protocol. They can't hack in there and stop it. But they can send, yeah. So that's a problem now. Those are problems that get fixed. How do we fix those problems? This is my mission, separation of money and state. What controls facilitators of fascism, aka the state police officers? I hate to say it, I'm a big advocate for police and rule of law, but at the same time, they're the same ones who get used to facilitate fascism because they are controlled by the monetary energy that we talked about in episode 1. Their pensions. Oh, you don't want to follow orders? Well, you lose your pension. You lose your job. Monetary energy gone. You're dead. That's how they control it. But if we separate this system, how do you think Rome fell? Like most people don't know, Roman soldiers walked off because the Roman denarius was getting debased. Silver coins were getting debased with copper. And they're like, I don't want these copper coins. I want silver. And they started walking off. And that's when you had All the barbarians start invading Rome. Rome collapsed because of the money. The US is doing the same thing. These officers or agents of the state, they follow orders because they're controlled by nothing else but the money, the fear of getting fired and losing your pension. That's fear, fear-based. That's how they get you to do whatever they want. That's how they got police officers to handcuff a little girl because she didn't have the jab. You know what I'm saying? And I love police. I have a lot of friends that are police, but when things get crazy, and this is coming, when things get crazy, they're going to have to understand their line. Where's my line? Where do I say because they're going to be asked to do these things. We're at the end stages of the credit bubble. Okay. And they're going to, and we saw this all throughout 2020. You had fascist cops, beating people up over masks or whatever it was. So this is where you have to start understanding why it's so important to separate money and state. If you have your own monetary system with value of its own that humans give to it because of its fundamental properties, you can walk away from that and say, I'm not partaking in that. I'm not going to help facilitate fascism because I'm afraid to lose my pension or my paycheck and I have mouths to feed. We start bringing in our own system. We don't need to rely on theirs. The fact that we rely on their system is what is the reason they get to do whatever they want. Oh, how do they implement medical fascism? You don't get your jab, you don't have a job. A lot of people didn't want to take it. They had to bend the knee because they have kids at home with their mouths to feed, bills to pay, mortgages to pay. I know people in my life that had to do it because we are in their system. This is my battle cry. I get emotional over it because they can do whatever they want because they control the monetary system. So that's why it's so important that we get out of their system. And this is the only way to do it. I mean, we can keep going with questions, but I hope you're like understanding. Everything that they do is because of the money. It's all the money. You fix the money, you fix the world. And that's why it's so important for Bitcoin to win. Like when people root against it, they don't understand. They're rooting for their own enslavement. I have friends that tell me that when the price goes down, they get text messages like, oh, you're an idiot, like cheering it on. These people don't understand is that they're rooting for their own enslavement. They're rooting for the central bank digital currencies that are coming. They're rooting for the government to have even more control over every facet of their life. They don't know what they're rooting against because we've had world reserve currency. The last 50 years is not going to look like the next unless we do something. We need to fix the money. We need to get out of their system. This is the only way to do it. And we can keep going through questions, but I think you're starting to get my point, right? They do what they want.
I agree with your strategy. I just don't know that Bitcoin is that. I wanted to show you this real quick and we'll get your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
I think it was Elon Musk who shared this.
Oh, don't get me started on Mr. Elon.
But I found this intriguing.
There's so many. Yeah, they did a whole podcast on conspiracy.
Well, you don't think there's anything
I'll give you one better. The NSA created SHA-256. That's that hashing algorithm that secures Bitcoin's network. I already know, believe me, I've gone down the right. My whole point is when you understand Bitcoin, it's true. Yeah, this one was funny.
I don't know if it's funny. It's pretty straightforward.
Again, when you understand, and this is something that people don't understand. When Bitcoin,
you don't think Bitcoin could be a psyop or something, a Trojan horse?
But my point is, it could. Listen, I'm not one of those people that will not change my mind. Like if something came out,
no, I know what you're saying.
You know me, like you know how I think, right? With this stuff, if something came out tomorrow that really, I would change my mind on Bitcoin in a heartbeat if certain things happen. But when you understand, like people overcomplicate what this is. It's open source software. There's no like magic to this. It's anyone who understands. I mean, obviously you have to have computer science background. Can look at this stuff. It's computer code. There's nothing special about it. What makes it special is that it requires work to generate. That's it. There's no secret NSA, but like when you understand computer code, it's like people think it's more complex. Like they think like, oh, the NSA and CIA is going to come in and like hack stuff. It doesn't work that way. It's open source software. Because I've studied the history of it, the first beginnings of Bitcoin is very buggy. The code had bugs
Oh,
in
yeah,
it.
like everything.
And it started to track. So what happened is what we said in the last episode, Satoshi sent out an email to cypherpunks or cryptographic experts, and these are digital privacy advocates. So he's like, here, I came up with this thing. We, whoever it is, could be the NSA. Maybe it's a government insider who knows what we're talking about. And he's like, I'm having no part in this. We don't know. Nobody knows, right? But the fact is, it's software. So he put it out, and it had a lot of problems in the beginning. There were a lot of bugs in the code. Then more smart people started to come to it. They started fixing things, adding inputs, but the main base layer protocol has done what it's meant to do, and that's produce a 1 megabyte block of transactions every 10 minutes. And when it takes longer, difficulty goes up. When it takes when it takes longer to produce a block, difficulty goes down. If it takes longer, it's self-governing. So because we don't understand computer science or code, we think like some government's gonna come in and like hack it. It doesn't work that way. The people that understand real computer code understand that this thing is untouchable by the end. It does. The only way to attack it would be, and this is maybe will answer one of your questions. How do you attack Bitcoin? You would need to do what's called a 51% attack, which means you need to go and source enough enough computers and electrical power to gain 51% of the entire network hash rate. Let's talk about what is hash rate. One hash is a computation per second. So Bitcoin miners run they run 1 quintillion calculations per second. To give you an idea of what a quintillion is, we talked last time, 1 billion seconds is 32,000 years ago. 1 quadrillion seconds, 32 million years ago. 1 quintillion, 1 with 18 zeros, 1 quintillion seconds was 32 billion years ago. And to put that into context, if you subscribe to the Big Bang Theory, I don't, but if you do, scientists think that was 13 billion years ago. 1 quintillion was 32 billion years ago. The Bitcoin hash rate, the energy that secures the network, is at a height was 300. It was over 300 quintillion hashing calculations per second. 1 second, 1 Mississippi, boom. So people understand like how it's the most secure computer network on the planet. The government would have to again these computers aren't easy to get. They'd have to go out and acquire anti-human state-serving fascists. But again, if you don't understand Bitcoin, they can't just put an ad on Craigslist, we need to take Bitcoin down. There's not enough people that have the expertise to go out, source these computers. And again, these are people that are going to be fighting against humanity and the good of humanity. How many of them are, like, we think people are inherently good, whether like with all the shit that goes on in the world, people are inherently good. They want humanity to thrive. Government would have to source. Remember, the state is a fucking penny compared to us. So now they're going to go source all these people to buy these computers and now go and expend. And here's the thing that people understand. Yeah, okay, let's say you get the computers and then you even find the energy. The only thing you could do with a 51% attack would be to mess with the previous block of transactions and maybe double spend some Bitcoin, because Bitcoin solves digital scarcity. The way I can send you an email, the email still lives on my computer, lives on your computer. Bitcoin, if I send you a Bitcoin, it's yours now, but it's digital. I don't have it anymore. Nothing else does that, right? They would have to expend billions and billions of dollars every 10 minutes to even try to, and let's say they did it, which is, if you understand the mechanics of it, it's basically an impossible move, because it's global. So they have to be all the governments of the world at the same time, globally coordinating to attack this network. And let's say they did it. Let's say they mess with the transaction, they mess with the technology. At the same time, now this is where the nodes come into play. The people who run Bitcoin nodes could say that blockchain is corrupted. We're just going to take the old chain and hard fork, which just means we're going to start a new chain, and that's the real chain. And that's where market dynamics come in. That's where the free market comes in and says, and this happened already in Bitcoin history, but I don't want to go too long, but this already happened where you had two camps of people within the Bitcoin space arguing over the size of the blocks. Well, if government attacks the blockchain, last ditch resort, we just hard fork and create a new chain, and then the market will decide. So the market's going to be like, where am I going to invest my money? Fedcoin or the real Bitcoin, untouched Bitcoin. So they can spend trillions of dollars trying to attack this thing. All we would do is literally reroute the network, and they would have spent all this money attacking the network for nothing. It's the example I gave in the last episode. It makes more sense to join the network and mine Bitcoin than to attack it. That's why no one's ever attacked it. No one has ever come close to hacking Bitcoin, because it's beautifully designed to incentivize you to join the network and not attack it. So again, the conspiracy stuff comes up all the time. It's like, what are they can't, it's software. People understand the software. No, there's no secret like backdoor. It's just like, it is what it is. It's very simple software. The only thing that makes it valuable is that it takes work to create. Capital markets. That's it. It's not like some like secret computer code. Anyway, I can go on bitcoincore.com, run the software. I'm not a computer science guy, but I could do it. Anyone could do it. So I hope that answers your question, where it's like, sure, maybe someone in government created it. But again, the ethos behind Bitcoin is anti-state money. So if you're going to use a PSYOP, you're going to create a global coordinated effort of government hating people, because that's what Bitcoiners are. We are anti-state. We're a leave us alone type of people. So you're going to create a global PSYOP and then literally create an army of anarcho-capitalist free market people. Like if it's a PSYOP, it's the dumbest PSYOP I've ever heard of, because they've inherently created an army of people banding together, growing exponentially to rid the cult's control of money over humanity. So sure, maybe someone in the cult, in the NSA, CIA, whatever it is, created Bitcoin as a PSYOP to get us ready for what they say. It's to get us ready for digital currencies. But again, it couldn't go more against that. So when you understand the mechanics of it, they're not just going to like, okay, people are on digital currency and like come and hit a button and shut it down. It doesn't work that way. They can't. So it's like, there is good in the world, and there are people, and this is another thing. Satoshi disappeared, right? They would be worth billions of dollars right now if they had came out, because again, whoever created this thing understood they could never show their face. There's different theories of who did it, because again, there are theories of people who were very close to the pseudonymous creator. Someone like Hal Finney, who was like the second person to interact. A lot of people think Hal Finney, he's a cryptographer, second person to interact with Satoshi, is Satoshi, but he passed away. So let's say it was him, he's gone. He passed away of ALS. So, and there's other people in the space, but again, because right now the wallet that holds there's about 1 million Bitcoin in a wallet that belong to the creator, Satoshi, hasn't moved in 12 years. So first things first, and again, when we get to other cryptos, all these other cryptos have a face, a founder, a team of people behind it. That's what separates Bitcoin. Whoever created it knew they knew we're bringing anti-state money to the planet. They will take us down. If you have a face, the state will come after you. So this person, whoever they, she, he are, has billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin in a wallet, hasn't moved in 12 years. So either that person has an insane amount of discipline to not move a single Satoshi for 12 years. But if they come out and move it, that would cause an insane amount of fear in the market. It would collapse the market value, the dollar value, I guess, because it would cause a lot of panic and fear. But even then, as long as the fundamental protocol doesn't change, it doesn't matter. It just does what it's supposed to do. So whoever this person or the group of people was that invented it, they're gone. Maybe he's dead. it doesn't matter now. Like it's just open. So now they created the software. It's out in the open. Anyone who understands.
He's hanging out with Banksy.
Yeah. Listen, that's what I mean. So it's like, sure, maybe it's a psyop, but it's the word, right? Created.
He's hanging out with Banksy and QAnon.
Yeah, but I
Who
mean,
is this?
it's different. QAnon is stupid. Like that's just stupid.
There's still people who believe in QAnon. Believe it.
Sadly,
I happen to know some, actually.
listen, the difference with QAnon and this is it's software. So it's like it is what it is.
I know.
Did you have any other questions?
No, and I think we can wrap it up now.
Yeah,
It's been a lot.
It's
definitely thank you so much.
I think we addressed the major
stuff.
I mean, I don't know if there's anything still like up. I think inherently this is what we should leave it with. Let's say I'm wrong on Bitcoin, right? If you don't know enough about it, then listen, the way to acquire Bitcoin is with knowledge base. If you don't know anything about it, you should have 0 Bitcoin, even though everyone on the planet needs it. Everyone on the planet needs it. I'll say that. But if you have no knowledge about it, if you haven't put one neuron into reading or looking it up, you should own 0. Don't own it. You're curious, you start reading, it seems interesting. Maybe there's more to this. Don't buy yet. Read a little more. And then eventually you
so what books would you recommend?
It's one of those things like so I mean, the first Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, it basically describes an overview of the current system and then describes why Bitcoin's better and it's better than gold and silver as a monetary asset. But then he even wrote an even better book that really just destroys the fiat system called the Fiat Standard, and it just goes into like how everything we've gone through, but just like in depth, like how it took over science, how it took over the medical industry, the food industry. Like there's so many podcasts. I mean, I'd probably there's.
Well, just like you don't have to throw everything at everybody.
Okay. So I will say there's a gentleman named Peter McCormick who has a podcast called What Bitcoin Did. Okay. He actually did a series which actually helped me a lot in the beginning. It's 17 episodes and it just from start to begin. So if you really want, I guess, a quick, without having to read all these books and things, just like something to listen to, I would do that. That helped me. That was definitely part of my journey. Episodes he does this episode 1 through 17 with a bunch of different Bitcoin guests, and each one covers a different topic. Because Bitcoin's it's the apex predator of finance. It covers so many different things, which is why it's like difficult to get one person to explain everything about it. Because even experts don't fully understand the implications of this thing. That's a good series, 17 episodes. You go through them, and then I think that will, when you listen to people, then you find them on Twitter, then you start following them, then you find out they have a book, and it just like there's no like I didn't have a roadmap. I just like
I'm going for that though.
Like
some resources that you think would be helpful.
I'm just saying in general because I think people sometimes they overcomplicate like because you don't know where to start, right? So I'll just give you that. It's you start there. What Bitcoin Did podcast with Peter McCormick, episodes 1 through 17. A lot of great guests, and then if something in you like wakes up, you'll be called to it. Remember, I want the audience to know I was not a Bitcoin guy. I was a hard money guy. I was a gold bug. I was a real estate mind. I was out. I was finding. I was a guy who just wanted to get away from the 9 to 5 and find different ways to generate wealth, and end up finding that this entire planet's run by psychopaths who are deliberately trying to destroy our livelihoods and using the financial system to do it. I didn't start out like this. I was led to this through a journey. That journey along the way led me to Bitcoin. And then I'm the kind of person, I don't rely on what people just tell me. I do the work. Bitcoin is based off proof of work. That's why it's the best protocol on the planet. You need work to understand. So listen, we're in the early phases. Not everyone's going to understand it. The same way not everyone understood the internet when it first came out. The internet was created by DARPA. Oh, thank you. Okay, Bitcoin maybe was, the internet was created by DARPA, right? You've heard David Icke talk about
Yeah.
DARPA. We don't even need to get into DARPA, but you know what DARPA stands for and the kind of things that they do. They created the internet in the 1960s. We're using the internet right now for good, because internet can be, they can use it for bad, but we can use it for good. So let's say in theory, some state agent did create Bitcoin. It's the same concept. Internet was created by DARPA, an evil, evil, evil organization. Internet was created by DARPA, yet here we are talking over the internet. So everything is what it's used. A gun could be used to protect yourself or to kill someone. It's all how it's used. Bitcoin was created, I think, for good. Maybe it was created as a psyop, but again, if it was created as a psyop, it's gonna backfire beyond belief, because what did it do? It created an entire generation of people who did the work to find out the fraud of the financial system. And now that we'll literally I'm dedicating my life. There's nothing more important in my life than the separation of money and state. I give up everything. I will sacrifice everything else until we separate money and state. It's a pact that I've already made with myself, and it's a journey, and we're growing, and that's just the way it is. So like, maybe it's a psyop, big mistake. Maybe someone created it for good. Thank goodness for people who want to see humanity thrive, and there's a lot of us. So it's like, it's optimism, and that's going back to it. So if you don't understand Bitcoin, don't buy it. If you start to learn about it and it piques interest, just keep learning, and then you buy a little bit. It's an asymmetric bet. So for let's say middle of the road people, let's say in the US, you're fucked in stocks, you're fucked in bonds, and real estate is I still like real estate, but it's gonna have a lot of hurdles. So let's say I'm wrong about Bitcoin. I'm not saying don't do any of those things, but at least do a little bit of research and start with 1% of your portfolio, 5%. The more you learn, I started with $20 worth of Bitcoin. I was like, I'm going to buy a little bit. I started $20. Then I learn more, and then I bought more and more. Then I bought a significant amount when the dollar price of it was like 10,000. And then when the liquidity crisis of March of 2020 hit, it went from 10,000 down to 3,000. And I watched like my initial investments of it like evaporate, crash 50%. But I was doing the work at the time. I'm like, believe me, at that time, I had anxiety, right? But at the same time, you know what? This is when, legends are made. So I went all in. I started buying at like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, and I've never stopped. And this thing went all the way to 70,000, and I just kept buying and buying. And I won't lie, I dabbled in other cryptos, but that's a whole other episode, which maybe we should do, because that's a big thing down the road. But the difference between Bitcoin and other cryptos is super important. I think maybe I'll do a solo episode on that, but it's super important because there's a big difference. So, again, it's all knowledge. So like, I don't tell people I'm all in because I've done the work and I understand the finance. If you don't understand it, if you think the next 10 years, 20 years is going to be like how it was for your parents, which we already discussed, listen, keep your 401k, your cash flowing, single family houses, whatever it is, but just do a little bit of work, learn a little bit about Bitcoin. And maybe if you have $100,000 investable portfolio, maybe dabble with $1,000, $10,000, and then you go from there. It's knowledge based. I started with low knowledge, bought $20. Knowledge goes up, increment goes up. You get to the point where you know so much, and like, I'm all in. I want the audience to know I don't save dollars. I'm all like, let's say I'm wrong on Bitcoin, it's a bet I'm willing to make, because I know the mission behind it is separation of money and state. If you know what this cult wants to bring to humanity, there's nothing more important. So it is what it is. Like, I'm all in on Bitcoin. I watch the fundamentals. Dollar price can go up and down, but the fundamentals don't change. They get better. More network adoption, exponential growth, more technological rails. Everything fundamentally about Bitcoin only gets better and better and better. But the untrained mind, the financially educated mind, they just look at the dollar price. Oh, it went to 50, crash. that has nothing to do with the true value of Bitcoin. The true value of Bitcoin only gets better and better. So yeah, I mean, listen, I think we can leave it at that. If people have questions, they could always DM me directly. I always talk to people offline.
Yeah, where can people find you?
Probably Instagram. I mean, I'm not a big social
Instagram.
media guy, but if you have to find me, you probably Twitter would be the best one, which the thing is, I don't even know my Twitter. And so off camera, you could probably link it on the, I'll give it to you and you could link it on the, because I don't even know my handles under at the top of my head. But
Okay.
yeah, we'll link the Twitter, link Instagram. And yeah, if you have serious, because the last few years, I've been talking a lot of, I'll put informational stories up and people will just ask me questions. I want to, again, this is my mission, education.
Oh,
Help
your
people.
Twitter handle's ed_award LTD.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you can link that at the bottom. of the
Yeah, I
video.
always put it, I have it in the other
Yeah, and then
episodes too, and I'll
or-
link the other episodes as well.
or DM on whatever it is. Like and again, I have you can ask anything you want. I've helped out. There are people who have a decent amount of Bitcoin simply just from like reading the stories I put up on Instagram. Like they may not have done the research, but maybe they started with something I wrote that piqued interest, and then they did some of their own research, and now they have like life potential wealth, like generational wealth, life-changing Bitcoin that they don't even know. Like, yeah, it doesn't seem like it right now because the price is whatever, 20,000 or 19,000. But when this thing really starts to do what it's supposed to do in terms of like separation of money and state, there's a saying in Bitcoin, it's like infinity divided by 21 million. There's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist, but everything else, infinity, is denominated in a global parasitic cult fiat monetary system. So we only have up to go. It's how much we take from that system that will determine if Bitcoin reaches the market cap of gold. That's what it's like 10 trillion or something. That's a $500,000 Bitcoin. So let's say you're looking at this, forget all the my money state separate. Let's say you're just an investor and you're just, if you could buy a Bitcoin right now at $19,000, and you don't have to, again, buy any amount. Let's say you have 19,000 to buy a full Bitcoin, and it had the potential to go to 500,000 or $1 million, and it has, and again, understand that the real potential. That's an asymmetric bet. All right, if you have that kind of money that you're willing to just put into something you don't understand, it means if you put in 20,000 and it goes to zero, it's not going to. Well, then you lose 20,000. It might sting. But if it goes to 500,000 or $1 million, that's an asymmetric bet. So for the middle of the road person with investable assets, not even all the unbanked people and billions of people who really need this to transact. But if you're an investor or you just want to save your purchasing power, it's an asymmetric bet. Bitcoin, if your time horizon's long enough, it only goes up and down. Houses priced in Bitcoin have absolutely collapsed against Bitcoin. Everything priced in Bitcoin has collapsed against Bitcoin. A cell phone used to be like 1,000 Bitcoin. Now one Bitcoin probably buys like 1 million cell phones. That's what I mean. And it's the same with gold. But again, gold is controlled by paper markets. If you look at stocks versus gold, and I'm sure you've heard this from your people in macro that you listen to, gold has destroyed equities. But again, that's if you hold a bunch of gold. If you hold gold in the S&P 500, your gold actually did beat equities. You have to think of it in terms like that. So it's like, it's an asymmetric bet. Bitcoin it only has the world value, financial value to devour. It's a pin drop in an ocean of fake credit, and it's like a vacuum. Fastest asset in history to reach $1 trillion. I think Amazon or Microsoft was the second fastest to reach $1 trillion, or the Bitcoin did it in 12 years, half the time. If people don't understand, I'm telling you. So again, forget the separation of money and safety. If you're looking at this as an investable asset, it's the best asymmetric bet on the planet. I made life-changing wealth in Bitcoin terms from a few, a general small investment, but because I did the work. See, people say, oh, you got lucky, you got in low. No, you don't see the hundreds of books and hours and podcasts and lack of social life it takes to get there. I knew where to put that money because I did the work. Okay. That's the reward. but again, we're still early. It's not too late. Forget the unit bias of like, oh, it's 20. No, you buy $10 worth, but the $10 in Bitcoin terms will appreciate, while $10 held in your pocket in fiat dollars depreciates. That's all you need to know. It's hard money. It's the best money this planet has ever seen. The government is going to fight it. They're not going to, but they will not win. They're not going to win. And again, there's many like me who will fight to the death if it has to happen, but they will not win. So take that as you will. Do the work, and I hope to see you on the right side of history, because there's nothing better. Nothing better. You know this, Corinne. I'm telling you. I may have not convinced you now, but we're going to work on this, and you will come around. I'm telling you.
Okay, Ed. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for your time. I will put the links to the previous episodes, and I always put your contact information. So I have your Instagram and your Twitter handle on there. That'll be on here again. If you guys want to reach out to Ed directly with more questions, you can do that. But once again, if you would share, like, subscribe, I would really appreciate it, because that's what grows the channel. That's what generates the interest. That's what gets the word
Guys, if
out.
this information brings you value, do everything you can to share it. That's what I do.
Yeah,
If
I
something
think that's the
really
most
clicks for
important
me,
thing.
share it. Don't be afraid to share things. Like, this is how you understand. We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same global monetary system that is owned and controlled, right? So if this information set something off and you share it with everyone. Don't be afraid.
Even if they may not look at it, just share it. It can't
just
hurt,
share
right?
the information.
I think a lot of people's lives have been changed through just sharing. Someone shared some random thing and they were somehow drawn to it, opened it, and whatever the case. So thanks for joining us. I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. And that's it. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Good night, Corinne. Thank you.